Hello gardener, welcome to my May garden guide, your go-to list of everything you can start from seed or transplant right now, no matter where you're located. I post a fresh guide every single month, so be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a single one. If you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Jara. I've been gardening all of my life and I'm a professional seed and plant nursery. I love to share my knowledge and teach others how to garden and grow food, so you've come to the right place if you want to improve your gardening skills. Before we begin, I want to share some free resources that will help you in the garden this month. My garden guide videos are jam-packed with information, so I created a free printable PDF checklist for May that covers every crop I'm about to mention. That way you can relax and not have to take notes. Just click the link in the description so I can email it to you. And don't forget to check out my website for seeds or plants mentioned in this video. Right now, the majority of the United States is in full spring gardening mode, and you should be done planting spring crops by now. If you're a hot climate gardener in a subtropical or tropical climate, this is mostly those of you with very mild winters, no snow, you should be harvesting out your spring crops and start planting summer crops right now. Therefore, this guide for the month of May is focusing on warm season crops. As I go through each crop category, I will point out the best varieties or alternative crops that grow well in the heat. Because the regular stuff won't make it through the extreme heat, monsoon summer rains that my Florida gardeners receive, or very dry conditions that those of you in Texas, Arizona, and California get during the summer. I can't stress how important cultivar selection is going to be if you're a hot climate gardener and are trying to grow food during the summer. Also, make sure you watch this video to the end because I have a special section dedicated to very unique heat-loving crops from around the world that you should consider growing during the upcoming summer season. Okay, let's get started with this May garden guide. First up, I want to talk about corn. It is time to direct sow sweet corn for a summer harvest. I really like a variety called Silver King. It's just very reliable and produces well for me. Or try a variety called candy corn, which was bred for enhanced sugary flavor. Sweet corn is super easy to grow. It just needs a lot of water and nitrogen to form nice big ears of corn. However, if you're a hot climate gardener, I suggest you grow sweet corn in the early spring before all the pests wake up from their winter dormancy. The pests, especially the corn earworm, love to chew up sweet corn. Right now, consider direct sowing seeds for dent, flint, or popcorn varieties for a summer harvest. If you have a mill, you can grind dent or flint corn to make cornmeal and masa for tortillas, among other things. Popcorn is easy to grow as it doesn't require additional processing or equipment to consume. You just simply pop the kernels and make popcorn. But these varieties are extra tough and the pests don't chew them up as much as they do with sweet corn. Next, let's discuss legumes. May is a great time for everyone to direct sow seeds for bush or vining green beans. If you're a hot climate gardener, this is basically your last chance to direct sow some before it gets way too hot. I really like a bush bean variety called Provider because it's the most early producing green bean I have ever grown so far. If you have more space and a trellis, then grow Kentucky Blue pole beans because they produce way more than a bush bean. Ideally though, for me being a hot climate gardener, I like to start transitioning to heat tolerant or tropical legumes. So let's discuss those for a little bit. If you want to grow something very similar to green beans in that you can consume the entire pod, then I recommend any type of yard long bean or long bean like a variety called Thai Soldier. Think of these as tropical green beans. They grow fantastic in the heat, humidity, or drought. I know some states are about to issue water restrictions, so planting drought tolerant things is really important right now. Make sure you carefully review the restrictions when it comes to vegetable crops though. Some states have different, more lenient rules when it comes to watering vegetable crops specifically. If you want to grow some sort of dry storage bean, which is when you grow it to harvest dry seeds to store away, not to eat the entire pod, then I can't recommend cowpeas or southern peas enough. They also thrive very well in hot and dry conditions. My favorite in terms of flavor and texture is a variety called pink eye purple hull peas. However, if you have root knot nematode issues in your garden, I recommend a variety called California Black Eye Pea number 5 because it is resistant to root knot nematodes, which, by the way, summertime is when nematodes are the most active. So another thing to keep in mind as we decide what to plant for a summer harvest is to plant things that are nematocidal or resistant. Otherwise, you're planting their favorite food and their population will increase in your garden. Speaking of nematodes, you might want to consider shutting down parts of your garden that have nematode problems and plant a nematocidal cover crop. This will help suppress the nematode population during the summer so you can plant a better fall garden. If you're in the southeastern parts of the United States, you should choose sun hemp or sorghum sundan grass as a cover crop during the summer. If you're more up north or in the middle really, you can use mustard as a cover crop, but not just any mustard. Use a blend called Nemagon or a cover crop with French marigolds. For any of these cover crops to work, you must cut them down before they start blooming and go to seed, and then till all of that plant matter into the soil. For nematocidal cover crops to be effective, the plant matter must be tilled into the soil so they release chemicals chemicals that kill or suppress the bad kinds of nematodes. And I do want to mention one more legume that will grow very well if you're past all danger of frost, and that's peanuts. Many think they're a nut, but in fact they're part of the legume family and are also nitrogen affixers. What that means is that they pull nitrogen out of the air and affix it into the soil. Make sure you direct sow the seeds in full sun with loose soil so the peanuts can easily expand. It is a great crop choice if you have soil on the more sandy or loamy side, and they don't require much in terms of nutrients, so pretty easy to grow. The only thing is they take 3 to 5 months to be ready for harvest depending on the variety you're growing. My personal favorite is a variety called Wild Jungle because it is very flavorful. Moving along, let's talk about my favorite thing to grow, and that's tomatoes. If tomatoes are a summer crop for you and you're past your last spring frost date, then go ahead and start transplanting this month. I think it's too late for just about everyone to just get around to starting them from seed, at this point anyways. If you're a hot climate gardener in a subtropical or tropical area, tomatoes are not a summer crop for you. It's too hot, they won't produce, and they just catch a ton of diseases and pests. Save tomatoes for the fall or spring. You might get away with planting some extra tough hybrids bred with high heat tolerance and disease resistance, or Everglades tomatoes, but that's it. Or you can try growing some microdwarf tomatoes indoors with a grow light. And hey, if you don't know if you're a subtropical or tropical gardener, just Google it. You'll find a map of the United States that shows which areas are subtropical or tropical. This is mostly southern coastal states and Florida, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. Next, we have cucumbers. If your summer days don't go over 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, then you can go ahead and direct sow seeds or transplant cucumbers. Any kind of cucumbers will grow well for you, from fresh market cucumbers like a variety called Straight 8 to pickling types like a variety called Boston pickling. It is a summer crop for you. However, if you're a hot climate gardener with summer days that are consistently over 90 to even 100 degrees Fahrenheit, cucumbers, along with many other crops like squash, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, really struggle to produce in high temperatures. The flowers drop, the plants stop growing, and pollination is not effective. So it is best for you to plant all of these crops during the spring and fall. Hot climate gardeners might get away with planting Asian cucumbers like Suyo Long and hybrids that have a very high disease package, like a variety simply called 201, if you direct sow some seeds like right now. Also, everyone can direct sow or transplant one of many cucumber alternatives, especially my hot climate gardeners. The first one that comes to my mind are cucamelons, which make for great miniature-sized pickles. Or try growing cucumber alternatives like Indian snake cucumbers or Armenian cucumbers, which are actually part of the melon family but have thin skins and a crisp texture, just like cucumbers, but they have a much higher heat tolerance. They also produce like crazy. You're going to harvest loads of them all summer long. Next, let's talk about squash. If your summer days don't consistently exceed over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, then all sorts of squash are a summer crop for you. You can direct sow or transplant summer squash, which are thin-skinned squash varieties like zucchini, or you can grow winter squash, which are the things with a hard outer shell that store for many months, like pumpkins and butternut squash. The only thing I'm going to caution you about is that summer is when squash bugs and the dreaded squash vine borer are the most active. If this is a pest you struggle with, then consider growing squash in spring or fall. Squash is one of the hardest vegetable crops to grow because of all the pests and diseases it attracts, but if you stay on top of these issues, you will be rewarded with a huge harvest. If you're a hot climate gardener, I don't recommend growing summer squash during the summer. They won't produce in high heat, and the plants will just attract pests, root knot nematodes, and diseases into your garden. Save them for early spring and fall. The only type of squash I would recommend you grow are the ones in the Cucurbita moscata family like Seminole pumpkins, calabaza, and Tromboncino rapicante, because they are extra tough varieties with much higher pest and disease resistance. But you still need to be vigilant when it comes to monitoring and treating for the pests and diseases, or just make gardening easier on yourself and save them for the spring and fall. Growing vegetable crops in high heat conditions is very challenging for many reasons. So to ensure you're still able to harvest something edible during the summer, I highly recommend you examine your growing space and try to add as many perennial edible fruiting trees and plants as possible. I rely on things like Mysore raspberries, muscadine grapes, passion fruit, mangoes, mulberries, guava, pineapples, bananas, papaya, and blackberries to produce a lot of pounds of food during the summer without much fuss. Established, mature fruiting trees and plants don't require anywhere near the same amount of effort as growing vegetable crops. You would be surprised how many fruit trees I've crammed into my very small garden. Just choose dwarf varieties that don't get very big, grow them in large containers, and also choose self-fertile varieties that don't require another tree to cross-pollinate with. I have a ton of live fruiting trees and plants on my website to help you expand the amount of perennial edible crops in your garden. Nearly everyone is now past all danger of frost frost and can begin planting sweet potatoes. I grow mine from slips that I propagate from tubers that I get from the grocery store. It takes about 1 to 2 months to grow and root the slips, but it's very inexpensive compared to buying slips. I recommend you check out Asian grocery stores because they always have a huge selection of sweet potato varieties. I especially love purple fleshed sweet potatoes like Okinawan purple because they have higher concentrations of nutrients and antioxidants when compared to the regular orange ones. Also, if you're past all danger of frost and have 5 to 6 months in a row of warm weather, it is time to direct sow seeds or transplant LUFFA. LUFFA is so much fun to grow. The vines grow quickly, so they are a good option if you want to create some privacy. Their flowers attract a ton of pollinators, and harvesting LUFFA gourds to use for sponges is a lot of fun. We like to make exfoliating LUFFA soap bars and give them away as gifts. I'll link in the description to my tutorial on how to make them. May is a great time to plant okra. This heat-loving vegetable thrives in warm soil and full sun. It also produces a lot of pods over the course of many weeks. My plants produce for me the whole summer. It is very easy to just direct sow the seeds in a sunny spot with well-draining soil. I recommend the Clemson spineless okra variety if you want to grow classic green pods, or try red burgundy, which produces beautiful deep red pods on plants that are more compact, so they fit better in smaller gardens and growing spaces. If you're just passing your last spring frost date now in May, you can go ahead and transplant both peppers and eggplants. You shouldn't be just starting them from seed though. Make sure you plant them in fertile soil and add fertilizer, azomite, and if you can, a mycorrhizal inoculant into the planting hole to boost production as much as possible. If your garden gets very hot temperatures during the summer, like days and days at 90 degrees Fahrenheit and above, peppers and eggplants start dropping their flowers, which means no production. I find that hot peppers tolerate higher temperatures better than sweet peppers, so you might want to plant just those instead. I also started covering my peppers with 40% shade cloth during the summer, and they fared so much better. So consider planting peppers in a spot where it will be easy for you to cover with shade cloth. I just zip tied shade cloth to some T-posts that were installed around the peppers. Now that we're going into the summer months, I'm going to start including a small segment at the end of my monthly garden guides, all about super tropical, lesser known crops from around the world that will grow and produce even in very high temperatures. Maybe you have never heard of these, so I'll explain each one. Let's start with a heat-tolerant leafy green called MOLOKHIA. May is a great time for gardeners that are past all danger of frost to sow seeds or transplant MOLOKHIA, also known as Egyptian spinach or jute leaf. This heat-loving green grows quickly in warm weather and is prized in Middle Eastern, North African, and Asian cuisines for its tender, nutrient-rich leaves. MOLOKHIA is commonly used in soups and stews where it gives a slightly mucilaginous, silky texture similar to okra with a mild, slightly earthy flavor. Planted in full sun, but if you're a hot climate gardener, it will grow better in a spot that gets afternoon shade. Harvest young leaves regularly to encourage new growth and keep the plant producing all summer long. The next special tropical crop I want to mention is chayote. If you struggle to grow squash during the summer, try growing chayote, also called vegetable pear, instead. Chayote has a crisp pale green flesh with a mild, slightly sweet flavor, perfect for roasting, sauteing, stuffing, or using in stews and salads. To grow it, purchase some chayote from the grocery store. Put the chayote in a warm spot in your kitchen and wait for it to sprout. There are so many ways to get the sprout to grow into a plant with roots. My aunt likes to carefully cut it into a section that reveals the seed inside. Then lay the piece in a shallow dish of water to encourage it to root more and grow a vine. Then plant it into the garden in a spot that gets bright morning sun with afternoon shade right under a trellis, because this is a vining plant and needs something to grow up on. If you're looking for some sort of dried bean crop to grow during an intensely hot summer, I recommend guandules, also called pigeon peas. I like to plant guandules starting in April, with May being the last chance, so this is your reminder. It is ideal to have them germinating and growing into a seedling by the time summer rains arrive. To direct sow the seeds, plant a couple in a mound and cover with about an inch of soil. Water the spot every day. The soil must be moist to help break the dried seed shell for better germination. If you struggle to get guandules to germinate, try soaking the seeds overnight. Guandules grow into a huge bushy shrub about 6 feet wide and 8 feet tall at maturity, so give it some space. It will produce over the course of about 2 years. Next, I recommend growing yams in the Dioscorea family of tubers. If you follow David the Good on YouTube, he talks about true yams all the time, saying it's one of the best survival foods you can grow in a tropical or subtropical climate because it produces a massive amount of carbohydrate-rich tubers per plant with very minimal effort, pests, diseases, or nutrients. The one that David the Good grows a lot is called Dioscorea alata, also called winged yam. Then there is Dioscorea trifida, which I know as name, which is a common vegetable root used in cuisine from Caribbean countries like the Dominican Republic, which is where my family's from. Winged yams produce bigger roots when compared to name, it, but it is easier for me to find name roots at a Latin American grocery store, sprout them, and then plant them in my garden. Both produce a massive tuber under the ground in about 9 to 12 months and are vining plants that require trellising. Just so you know, some species in the Dioscorea family are considered invasive. This depends on which state you live in, but if you're looking for a survival crop that produces a massive amount of food with minimal effort, then being invasive is a plus in my opinion. If you can't control it or stay on top of harvesting them, maybe it's not for you. My last crop idea for May is roselle, also called Jamaican sorrel. May is the perfect time to get started with planting roselle. It is a heat-loving plant that needs a long growing season to reach full size before it begins flowering in the fall, when shorter daylight hours trigger blooming and the formation of its bright red calices. The larger your roselle plants are by fall, the more calices you'll harvest. These tart cranberry-like calices are used to make teas, jams, syrups, and refreshing drinks like hibiscus tea or agua fresca. Plant roselle in full sun with well-draining soil and give it plenty of space to grow. Plants can get very large, over 6 feet tall. You can direct sow seeds or sow them in containers to grow transplants to be planted out in a few weeks. I hope this May garden guide has given you a ton of ideas for things to start growing this month and fill up your summer garden with lots of food. If you found this video helpful, please give me a big thumbs up. That helps my channel out more than you know. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my gardening tutorials, and share this information with your gardening friends. Don't forget to check the description for the resources to help keep your garden on track this month and links to the things that I mentioned in this video. Thank you for watching and happy gardening.